People love a good story. And when I tell folks how Michelle and I met, there's always somebody who leans back and says, "Oh, that was divine intervention." Like the universe personally clocked in that day just to put us in the same room. Okay. Now, look, I know people mean well when they say that. It's their way of expressing wonder, gratitude, and romance. Okay. But let me be honest with you, it wasn't divine intervention, it was persistence, it was intention, it was two adults making choices. And one of those adults was a little bit more persistent than the other. So, we like to dress life up in supernatural language because it feels poetic. But as someone once said, the hands that help are far better than the lips that pray. So, you know, we're just kind of wired like that, folks. We assign cosmic meaning to ordinary events. So when a relationship works out, people think, "Oh, well, God planned it," or "Won't He do it?" or "Fate wrote it," "Destiny chose it," "The universe conspired." Uh, but in my case, destiny didn't choose anything. I chose. Michelle chose. And choices beat destiny every day of the week. I would chuckle sometimes because my son Blake would say that his friends um, would notice how attractive his mother was, my wife Michelle, and they'd say stuff to him like, "Dad, Blake, um, how did your dad end up with somebody like that?" And I had to be honest, I felt some kind of way about that. Why wouldn't I end up with somebody like that? But anyway, uh, so here's what really happened. Okay, here's what really happened. Um, I remember it was 1990, and so I date myself. But anyway, um, I went to a club. Yes, a club, nightclub, and I met this woman, and asked her for a number, took her out, and so about a week later, um, I picked her up. However, I noticed that when I picked her up, she didn't seem as quite as attractive as she was when I met her in a nightclub. So um, I'm just being honest with you. So nightclub glasses, I guess, whatever. So and then so when I went ahead with the date, we had a good time. Everything went well. But because I wasn't motivated in the future potential, I decided just let's go ahead and get this date over with. Don't I sound awful? Anyway, it's true. I'm being honest. But anyway, so on my way home, I was about to go home, and on the way home, I saw the same club, and I was like, you know what? Let me just see what's going on in there. So on a whim, I just went in there, and I walked through the door, and I saw my wife Michelle sitting at a table. And I was like, "Ooh, she's attractive." So let me make my way over there. Um, Let me introduce myself. Fortunately, people didn't have their phones that they're doing like this, so they're unapproachable. So we didn't have all that back then. So I went over there, struck up a conversation with her. We talked, we danced. Back then in the nightclubs, the music wasn't so loud that you could actually carry on a conversation without, "Hey, you come here often." We got to get it right up on people, you know, uh, and get infected because you're all up in their faces. We didn't have to do that back then. And you didn't have to pay extra money to sit down. It wasn't standing room only. I mean, we could actually sit at a table and have a conversation. And we danced on the dance floor with each other. And just it ended up being a really good night. And just meeting someone, talking to her, having fun together. And at the end of the night, I gave her my phone number, and asked her to call me. She said she was um, from New York, and she was headed down to Atlanta to go to graduate school at Clark Atlanta University. So I was excited because this woman was very attractive, and she said she was coming to Atlanta, which was where I live, and I was like, this one has potential. So I was kind of excited about that. So I gave her my number, and I was very hopeful. She said she'll be back in August. This is around June of that year. So August comes around, and it's getting like the second half of August, and I'm like, I hadn't heard from her, and she's like my top contender of the women I was dating. I was like, what's going on? So she hadn't called me or anything. Now, come to find out later, she actually lost my number. The universe conspired and made her lose my number. I'm just kidding. So, but that's what happened. Now she took kind of the attitude, that fate type attitude. She said that once she lost the number, she was looking for it. She couldn't find it. She was like, "Oh well, guess it wasn't meant to be." That's that fate shit. Um, and but I had a different response. I was like, "Okay, it's almost September, and this chick hadn't called me yet, and she's like my top contender right now, so I got to take matters into my own hands." So back then, this is prior to cell phones. So back then, I was like, what can I do? What can I do? I remembered her name. And so I said, she's from New York. I said, let me just see if she's even down here. So I started calling information. Back then, we had something called information. And you would dial 411, I think it was, from what I remember. And so I started calling 411, or the operator up in New York. They had operators too that you could call. And so I started calling information looking for Michelle Wallace's. So that's her name, Michelle Wallace Turpeau. So I was looking for Michelle Wallace. And I'm calling around New York, but eventually it hit me. I'm like, shit, that's New York City. There's probably no telling how many Michelle Wallace's. So I'm calling several numbers, and I'm not having any luck. And then finally had that revelation. This is going to take a while, especially in New York City. So I said, let me try it. Well, it is. Maybe she did come down. So to Atlanta. So let me start calling around Metro Atlanta. So I called 411, operator and all that around Metro Atlanta. And a few calls in, I get this one number, and I call, and the woman on the end, she says hello and all that. And I tell her that my name and that I'm looking for Michelle Wallace, that I met a couple of months ago at a nightclub. At Marco's was the name of the nightclub on Camilton Road. And she's like, oh, well, hold on a minute. And then back then you had like call waiting, so she put me on hold. And as she put me on hold, she clicked over. And you know, she came back on the line and said, yeah, well, I just talked to her. I was on the phone with her. And she said, that she's gonna call you, give me your number. She's gonna call you, especially when she gets to town. She'll be in town the next week or so, and then y'all can hook up. I said, oh wow, that's great. I was so excited. I found her. I actually found her by just persistently calling. Well, back then it wasn't. It could have been, but it's probably this too, because we had dial phones back then, like that. I'm calling, and that's how we got together. So just to summarize, I saw Michelle. I was interested, and instead of waiting for the clouds to part and a choir to sing, I followed up. I called. showed up. I communicated clearly. I stayed consistent. Okay, I didn't disappear when life got busy. Some folks call that divine timing. I call that grown man effort. Okay, so it wasn't this and like, oh, and hoping. It was this. Persistence, follow through, creating your reality. Now, some folks, younger generations, would call that stalking. Today, that's what, oh, that's stalking. Hey, but as one person said, hey, it's not stalking if it works. And it's not stalking if the if the person who's being pursued thinks that the pursuer is attractive. Come on now, let's be honest. Y'all know that's true. Okay, so so you see when people see us, but the whole point I'm trying to make, folks, is that when people see a strong marriage, they assume something magical built it. But strong marriages, they don't fall out the sky. They are built with persistence, patience, communication, vulnerability, and two people showing up every day. If you want a relationship to feel like heaven, because my relationship feels like heaven, and if you want a relationship to feel like heaven, you have to put in work here on earth. Okay? People say Michelle and I were meant to be. I say we chose to be every single day. The real miracle is not divine intervention. It's human intention. It's two flawed, beautiful human beings deciding, I pick you again and again and again. No lightning bolt required. So the next time someone says, y'all were meant for each other, I smile and say, we gave ourselves permission to create something meaningful. It's a human achievement. And when you own that, you realize you're not waiting on the universe to bless your relationship. You're co-creating it. So, if you want to build a relationship that feels intentional, not accidental, reach out. Michelle and I coach couples every week who are ready to turn I hope into I choose. So visit drturpeau.com and we'll see you soon.